Listen up. Christ was never a white man. Christ was never a soft man. You know what Christ is? He's a revolutionary. You know why? Because when he comes, he's going to take this kingdom down. You know who Emiliano Zapata is? Emiliano Zapata. What about Pancho Villa? What about Fred Hampton? Marcus Garvey? You know all those brothers? What do they all have in common? They were revolutionaries. And they loved their people. Are you willing to be a revolutionary for God?
Something like that.
Something like that? Hold that. Let me get Psalms 94:16. God has a question for you, my brother. What you're bumping into today is your history, your nationality, and your culture. Things that you need to know to redeem who? Your people in your community. Because we've been destroyed with what? Drugs, religion, hate. Who brought in drugs into our communities? Do you know? CIA, you're correct. 1980 through 88. You know who Oliver North was? Oliver North was an army general that worked with Ronald Reagan. They both conspired to bring cocaine into South Central. You know who Freeway Freddy is? No? You know who Rick Ross is? That's the so-called rap artist. He's not the real Rick Ross. The real Rick Ross was working with the CIA. The CIA taught Rick Ross how to cook cocaine into crack. Then Rick Ross brought that into the communities, right? But guess who was benefiting from that? Our enemy, the oppressor. You know what they did with that money? They sent it back to the contract and gave the money so they could be able to buy guns. That's when they got busted. You still got Zechariah 11:5? Before I read on Psalms 94:16, watch this. You familiar with Breonna Taylor? Not? That was a sister that got gunned down. Detectives went to her house, they blasted her house and just killed her. All right? Now, we're talking on the subject of the Iran-Contra. We don't have no planes, no trains. We don't have money to bring in those drugs. But when they found out that they were selling guns to that country, what do the United States call that? They call that treason. So what are the consequences? Jail or death. Read.
The book of Zechariah, chapter 11 and verse 5. Whose possessors slay them?
So, Breonna Taylor got killed. Read.
And hold themselves not guilty.
No, they found the policeman guilty.
Not guilty.
How many of your people do you know on the news that died by policemen, government officials, and they were not found guilty? Count them on your finger. You know what, brother? You can't, because there's too many, right? Read it again.
The book of Zechariah, chapter 11 and verse 5. Whose possessors slay them?
Because the conquistadores, the Englishmen, at what time they possessed us. This is the history that they failed to teach us. And when they do teach us, they don't tell us why we went through slavery. And when they do teach us, focus, brother, and when they do teach us, guess what? They don't show us that we're the same people. You ever been to jail? What do they do when we go to jail? What do they tell the raza? Hey, you rolling with us, you're rolling in our ranfla. Meaning what? Don't talk to the tintos. You're rolling with us. But guess what? The tintos, or the so-called blacks, we're in the same position, in the same predicament. Read it again.
The book of Zechariah, chapter 11 and verse 5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty.
So when they go to court, like they did with Oliver North, how did they find Oliver North?
Not guilty.
Because how many people got slayed with the crack cocaine? How many of our people died from that thing? How many people died on the Iran-Contra from the weapons that were sold over there? They found them. They found it. They saw that that's what they were doing. But the Bible says what?
Not guilty.
Not guilty, brother. When are we going to get justice? Go back to Luke, chapter 1, verse 68. We're going to get justice, brother. But guess what? You're coming to the realization. What do you consider yourself? Mexicano? Today, you're coming to the realization that you're not an Hispanic no more. From today on, your mind has to change. Because he's the one that called you Hispanic. His people called you Hispanic. when they came to rape, rob, and murder your people in 1492. That's not how Christ looks like. The conquistadores, when they came, they brought this image over. We never worship this image. Today you're finding out that you're from the tribe of Issachar, from the nation of Israel. When they came, they changed your last name, they changed your customs, and they taught you how to do wicked things. Read.
The book of Luke, chapter 1 and verse 68.
So, do you want justice for your people? Read.
Blessed be the Lord of Israel.
Of who?
Israel.
Of you. You see these other nations that kill us, oppress us? They don't have a God. They don't have a God. Read.
For he hath visited and redeemed his people, and hath raised up a horn of salvation.
Horn means leader. Read.
For us in the house of his servant David.
Who?
In the house of his servant David, and has spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began, that we,
That who?
that we,
The whole world.
that we
Blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans. Read.
should be saved from our enemies.
So, for the people that love us,
From our enemies.
because no one loves the Hispanic man. No one loves the Mexican man. No one loves the black man. But guess who loves you? God, because he sent who? His son to do what?
That we shall be saved from our enemies.
From our enemies. What's your name, my brother? I didn't even get it. Andy. I'm Jehu. We're going to get saved from who?
That we shall be saved from our enemies.
So God has a question for you. Because I made a statement about Christ being a revolutionary. Psalms 94 and 16. Psalms 94 and 16. Read.
The book of Psalms, chapter 94 and verse 16. Who will rise up for me?
What's the question?
Who will rise up for me against the evildoers?
Against who?
Against the evildoers.
So that's the question, my brother. Are you willing to rise up for God? And this, it's not a generic question where I want you to come like church on Sundays and just sit there so the Bible can be open, and then you go home and you continue in your wickedness. The question is a legit question because God. How do you know God? How do you know what type of characteristic God is? Hold that. Let me get Exodus 15 and 3. In our mind, we think that God is somebody floating on a cloud, half naked, soft, effeminate, but that's not so, my brother. Why do you think the majority of Hispanics and blacks join the military? Why do you think? Why do you think? I want you to put on your thinking cap. Why do you think, my brother Andy? My sister, I got a question for you. Okay, she's sign language. So why do you think the blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans are the most that fill up the military? You don't know, Andy? It's fine, Andy. You know why? Because we're warriors. We're warriors by nature, Andy. That's what we are. Watch this. We're just like our fathers. Because look, when the conquistadores came, they only came with 500 people. How many Aztecs were in Tenochtitlan? More than 1 million. You're telling me that 500 conquistadores were going to take down a whole nation? The Most High allowed that. Read.
The book of Exodus, chapter 15 and verse 3. The Lord is a man of war.
Of peace.
Of war.
Love everybody.
Of war.
You see that, Andy? The Most High is a man of war. Go back to Psalms 94 and 16. Read.
Against the evildoers. And who will stand up against the workers of iniquity?
Iniquity means sins. So we need to go into our community and teach our people what? How to get right. So we can stop the oppression, Andy. Right? So we can lead our people back to what? To the kingdom.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission, minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.